Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we are returning to Victoria 3, a new game just out by Paradox Interactive, the newest game in the Victoria series, as you might guess by the number 3 behind the name, and we are playing this game as Mexico. We're 5 years into the campaign. It starts in 1836, and so far things are going okay. We basically started off with crushing Texas. We have since expanded Texas into its historical region by, I guess, sort of slowly colonizing some of the native tribes in the region. We also just fought a war against, oh my god, was it the Comanches? It was a native tribe that I already forgot their name. That makes me horrible. But we did just, it wasn't the Apaches. It was, I think it was the Comanches that we just defeated. And so we also have expanded our reach in New Mexico and Mexican Colorado. We are encroaching on Navajo land as well. So this is like a weird soft imperialism that we've got going. We haven't been fighting wars against these native tribes, with the exception of that one war I mentioned we just won. But we have been slowly sort of colonizing their territory away from them. So it's a nice non-genocide version of it until it isn't. But in any event, we're continuing to push our colonies out, working on Utah, working on New Mexico. Mexican Colorado is probably going to get cut off about there because it looks like the Americans are just north. We might take some of the Arapaho lands, and then, you know, filling the map in here to look more and more cohesive, if you will. There's 3 major tribes left for us to deal with. I guess 4 if you count the Arapaho, and a very tiny, well, the Apache, the Navajo, the Utes, and the Arapaho. Meanwhile, the U.S. just beat the Great Sioux, so that was a little bit early, I think. That didn't happen until after the Civil War, right? But they just defeated the Great Sioux Nation, and so now they really only have the Soroka and the Pawnees left in their borders that are sort of independent of the United States. We're moving toward the historical Mexican-American War, which I am not prepared for at all. The United States has stupid amounts of military power, 41 battalions and 274 reserves. You compare that to our military, we have 13 battalions and 19 in reserve, so we're kind of fucked. Unless they only send a fraction of their force, which maybe that's what they will do. Not really sure. In any event, Mexico is a nice big empire at the moment. We haven't really done anything in the Central America region. New Granada is one of our rivals in South America. And we've got declared interest into the Great Plains, and a couple other places that I can't actually remember. We're working on trying to improve relations with the U.S. to sort of head off a potential war with them. The Russians really like us, don't know why, but they apparently do. They are protective of us. The French have a good relation with us, mostly because we trade a lot with them. Not really sure how the economy is going. We had a couple of gold rushes, which really caused the population in California to spike, for example. Oh, whee! I didn't even know you could right-click and swing the map around. But at the moment, I don't know. We have an input goods shortage for some of our gold mines and things like that. We're not producing enough tools. Our economy is a little bit in the red when we're building stuff. You can see our construction goods have a negative input when we're constructing things, although our balance when we're not constructing things is positive. That being said, you probably shouldn't not be building stuff very much in Victoria. You should kind of constantly be building for the most part. So I'm not really sure where to go with this. I'm assuming building up industry and other things like that's a good thing. We are working on finishing off an upgrade to a university that should help churn out more educated folks. We just unlocked Catholic schools because the Catholic interest group is sort of the main part in our conservative ruling party. We've switched over to a landed voted democracy. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the situation we find ourselves in. Veracruz has been built up from its from a smaller population. They've got a pretty big annual increase of population because we've increased the port there and a lot of other things. And we're close to railroads being unlocked as well. But I'm not totally... Oh, goodness, it crashed. That's the second time the game has crashed on me. One moment, please. Do, 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 do. Most competent THG stream? What the hell are you supposed to, what's that mean? Why is it the flag white? I haven't surrendered. There we go, we're back. Okay. I forgot what I was talking about. All right, so we're expanding that university. We need to build, we need more tools, I guess. So if we go to market, we go to trade routes. By the way, does anybody know, like, if you have a negative trade, if you have a negative balance from these individual goods, that doesn't mean like your economy's in the toilet, right? That just means you've got to import goods or whatever. And right now there's more demand than there is supply. And so it hurts your standard of living. That's my assumption. But it could be wrong. All right. So we really don't, we've got more required convoys than available convoys. So that's kind of been a constant struggle with us, is we just don't have enough. I don't think we have enough resources to really, we don't have enough convoy capacity to deal with all the demand that we have. We do have a surplus of gold. Great. It turns into money. So I can't really cut a trade route for that. And all these other things, we really don't have a large enough surplus, I don't think, to cut any of these trade routes. No trains yet. Warbler. Close. Goods with considerable import demand. Doesn't really say there's a lot of import or export demand, sorry. Import demand, we still want furniture, clothes, grain, and wood. So what I think we need to do next in terms of building is probably need more tools. But I don't understand the input thing. So it's saying there's no demand for importing tools, but there's a demand for tools. I don't quite understand that. Let's actually go back to buildings here real quick. Do we have any tool factories? I don't think we do. A tool workshop might be good. And we have a large surplus population of peasants in Bajo. It also looks like we have enough labor for this. I think we have enough labor for this. Looks like it. So Bajo is where some of the tools are needed for the gold mine. So we're actually going to build this here. That'll be built next. That hopefully will help with the tool shortage. So what are the inputs for them again? Because we're going to have to import goods for that. It uses wood. And that's it? They're wooden tools? You don't use any iron? Okay. So that should be good. I'm gonna figure out my economy in a moment. Meanwhile, so we'll build those tools. We also, since we probably want to expand, I mean, we are importing wood, but how are our logging camps doing here? They're profitable. They're basically break even. So it's the largest logging camp in the world. We've got the largest logging camp in the world. Really? Okay. The tool factory will be helped if we're not importing as much wood. So let's go ahead and up this to a level 4 logging camp. Although its weekly balance is negative 129, so maybe that's not a good idea. It'll make it less profitable, but then we could probably cut trade. I don't know. Yeah, we need grain. There's no way this is the largest maize farm in the world. Something's up. Because it says it's the largest gold. It's just because we're not running the game yet. All right, increase the maize farm as well. I know, like, I'm guessing we're probably going against what a lot of people are doing here. I'm assuming a lot of people are just going heavy into, like, industry, and they don't want to be resource shops. They want to be finished goods. You know, that would make sense for the Victorian era. But it feels like this is the direction that maybe we need to go as a minor power, or as Mexico at the moment. until things open up a bit more later. I could be wrong, but that's where I feel like we're at right now. We could work on crystal glass. We currently have a glass factory that's producing glass. So if we work on crystal glass, that may be a good thing. Also, we could work on railways, which will take 28 months. Alternatively, we could work on some military stuff, which if the Americans are coming for us, it might not be a bad idea. Percussion cap unlocks munition plants, leads to rifling, but it doesn't actually change. I guess it allows them to operate better in multiple types of weather, but I don't see like an actual immediate impact other than opening up the road to rifling. Shell guns unlock smooth bores for the arms industry and breech loading artillery technology, which could be good. I think we're going to go with logistics though, because that'll increase our conscriptable battalions by 20%, which might make it easier for us to defend ourselves. So we're going to go with logistics. Logistics is always good in war. And then let's also look at maybe increasing taxes. Let's see, right now we are way in the red. This might be bad, especially because it's a tax that impacts our poor people, but we'll see. I don't know why it's saying our construction, we'd have a positive balance. This doesn't make sense to me. 20, so national revenue, but then when you factor in construction, we're -7. I'm not quite sure I understand the math there. 40, temporary national revenue, an investment pool transfer. Oh. Okay, so that was like a one-time thing. They probably aren't thrilled about the taxes. I don't understand the bureaucratic shortfall thing. I don't have a bureaucratic shortfall. Why is it saying I have a bureaucratic shortfall when I don't have a bureaucratic shortfall? Trade routes need convoys. Yes, I'm aware of that. Wood is expensive, so we're building a more lumber, or we will build a bigger lumber mill. Clippers are expensive because we did just build a shipyard though. Didn't we? We don't have, it's not fully hired. Okay. Is it producing anything right now? It's gonna go bankrupt, isn't it? Well, I don't have military ships to produce. Oh, no, it's back into the positive now. Wood, fabric. Artillery from Britain is unproductive. Are we not using construction potential? We've got all of these things working. Okay, you can see now it's like the 140th largest. All right, so it's got a weekly balance of almost 500,000. I think we'll about break even, so let's expand the lumber mill too. Popular playwrights endorse reform. In the midst of the debates surrounding the dedicated police force, one of the country's leading playwrights, strongly associated with the armed forces, has staged a wildly acclaimed play whose political-laden theme makes no secret the author's desire for the law to be passed. The man's viewpoints may be somewhat partisan, but sir, you cannot argue with his prose. Dedicated police force will be on everyone's lips now, increases the enactment chance. Popular support for the law while it is being enacted. This sure puts the armed forces in a good light, which gets armed forces flattering portrayal for 5 years. Just let us ensure it gets wider international audience. Sure, prestige is good, right? It's already probably going to pass, so All right, so we're still in the red, even with our high taxes. Do we want to like stifle the economy and just jack taxes way? I think what we'll do is we'll just pass a new tax law once we get the police force enacted, and then we'll look at what our economy looks like then. But yeah, we're starting to get quite a good chunk of debt here. And I don't ever envision like not building stuff. That's the challenge. United States will now be able to participate in diplomatic plays, conduct diplomacy, create trade routes in the Pacific Coast region. United States activates Pacific Coast interests. That's bad for us. Mexican market price report. Is there, by the way, do you guys know, is there a way you can increase your interest in new regions, like without it being an event? Ooh, proposed trade agreement with France. They would now accept. I don't know what this does for us, though. So it costs 100 diplomacy or influence or whatever the hell this is. Increases relations to a maximum of 80. Does this lower costs with trade with France? Like, what does the trade agreement do? A type of diplomatic pact between two countries that eliminates tariffs and bureaucracy. Costs. Okay, so it eliminates tariffs, which will probably hurt our revenues. It will make those goods more affordable in our markets. What do our trade agreements with France look like? So we're importing wood from Russia. We're exporting dyes to France. Trade revenue after tariffs, 1.56 thousand. So it'll make those workers richer. What else do we do with France? We also are exporting sugar to France. We're importing luxury clothing from France. What don't you like about it, Enigma? I've enjoyed it. We're also importing fabric from France. Okay, close. So, I think it would make more sense for us to do the trade agreement in the event that I had more strategic mindset around what I'm importing from them and what I could import from them. I'm not sure there's anything I instantly am just like, I need to make this market more efficient. Obviously, we need more clothes, but I don't have the convoys to fix these issues just by getting cheaper goods from France. Like, that won't solve the core issue. And most of my trade goods, all my trade goods with France are profitable and productive. Again, it would help some of my people out, but I don't know if I care about that. I don't even have enough convoys for all my trade routes with France. So I think what we're going to do is Veracruz maxed out on the shipyard. Are we short on work? Oh, they're currently right. Or the port. Let's expand the port to 4. After the logging camps, maize farms, and tools. And also, by the way, apparently our construction is high enough now. Capacity is high enough where we can build 2 things at once. Partially, anyway. Most of our resources are still going into one of them. Enigma, I think the difference, and I don't know if you played a lot of Victoria 2 or not, but Victoria's core mechanics were never a war game in the way that Hearts of Iron is, so I think you just may be looking for a game that doesn't exist here, and never has, frankly. Victoria 2 had more detailed war management than this, but it was always a game, and it has always been a game about optimizing trade routes, building, you know, your industry, those kind of things. Now France wants to enter into a trade agreement with us. I don't know. I enjoy it, Enigma, but hey, to each their own. I actually like the way the economy works in this as opposed to Victoria like 1 or 2. I think it's absolutely silly, like in the early Victoria games, how you could just be like, I'm going to go out and buy a whole bunch of clipper ships, and now like I've got all this convoy thing. I like the idea of ports determining the actual capacity of things you can move as opposed to the number of ships and other things. You know, you can only unload so much. It doesn't matter how many ships you have. The infrastructure, I think, is handled better in this. Granted, I haven't gotten to the railroad period, which was a big part of the earlier Victoria games, but I do enjoy that. I think there's a lot of, what I will say though, is there's a lot of people. No game can be all things to every person. So, you know, I enjoy it. You may or may not. And at the end of the day, I don't put a lot of stock into an individual, like an individual player reviewing it. Because again, everybody wants a different thing or some variant of that out of a game, and people tend to be critical of games that don't meet their very specific desire. And you can't design a game that way. There's always going to be trade-offs. There's always going to be things you want to do as a designer that's not going to mesh with certain players. So I think the really difficult thing in any reviewer, and I haven't reviewed this and I don't really review games, but I think the very difficult thing for any reviewer to do is figure out how do you fairly approach a game and make an assessment on a game when what your review is not doing is saying, this is what I want, right? And I think that's the difficult challenge of any like real reviewer, is figuring out how do I, as best as possible, have kind of an objective lens rather than a personal lens. Yes, MTGO, this is really about the Industrial Revolution. What do you guys think? Should I do a trade agreement with France? I don't really know. Groggy, whatever. The whole DLC thing is, it's been a thing Paradox has been doing for a decade plus, where their games come with a lot of DLC. That's not really a damning review in my opinion. I lose tariffs if I have trade. Yeah, I know I lose some. How much tariff revenue do I have? 3.2. I think about half my trade probably flows through France. No, less than half. Okay. About a third. I mean, Vicky 2 was like an absolute buggy train wreck of a release, wasn't it? Like, wasn't Vicky 2 released in the era of everything Paradox released wasn't incomplete? Everything Paradox released was broken. But I would say there, you know, I think one thing that a lot of sort of long-term Paradox, all right, so fractional distillations unlocked, go. One thing I think a lot of players are really struggling with in the last few years with Paradox games is like, there's a lot of old-time grog Paradox fans. They don't make up the majority of Paradox customers by all accounts. But there's a lot of old-time Paradox players who want a game to be what Paradox used to release in the Vicky 1, Vicky 2 era, or Hearts of Iron 2, Hearts of Iron 3 era. And that's just not the company they are anymore. Paradox is a mainstream company. They sell millions of copies with their games. And I don't think, you know, I think Paradox has changed to try and appeal to a wider base of people. And I think the reality is they have to, because they just have such a, I mean, the company used to be what, like 50 people, like back in some of these early days. This is a multi-million dollar, like hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue per year company now, with 300 plus people working directly for them. You can't make a niche game when you're a studio of that size. I didn't play a lot of Hearts of Iron 3. I enjoyed Hearts of Iron 4, being somewhat new to the Hearts of Iron series. I think Crusader, the interesting thing is I think Crusader Kings 3 was massively better than Crusader Kings 2, at least on release. I don't really understand why Paradox's like DLC approach to CK3 has been so slow. They've had a bit of, why is this police force thing, this is taking for freaking ever. I think Paradox really had some chaos. Max port level 1, hydraulic cranes unlocked. Yes. Paradox as a company, I think, had a fair bit of chaos over the last few years. Internally, I think, with some of the CEO turnover and stuff. But it really, like, CK3 was probably the best released Paradox game on release, in my opinion, of any other games. And I think the fact that they've only had, what, like 2 major DLCs since it came out is kind of not, like, in keeping with what they've done previously. Maybe it speaks to the game being in better shape, but like CK2, when it launched, a lot of people talk about Paradox games feeling hollow when they release. CK2, literally, you would like click on Muslim countries and they'd be like, nope, can't play, not allowed. It's like, wait, what? You know, it was deliberately like just a shell. And I enjoyed it, but obviously the DLCs turned that thing into something massive. But on release, that thing was just weird. All right, so I don't have enough people to fully hire all of these things. Veracruz, shipyards. I really need more people. But they probably don't want to come here because I'm not like, oh, my standard of living is that just the country Mexican market? Yeah, my standard of living is getting worse. Probably because of the taxes that I just massively increased. I think we're getting to the part where my economy's not in good shape. What are we building right now? The maize farm, the logging camp, and then the port. Trade routes are still maxed. Oh my god, I'm importing so much wood from Russia. Okay, AM. That's good to know. Thanks for the follow, AM. Well, I think we're probably gonna die soon. I don't really know what to do. I mean, we could stop building things for a while and get some cash back, but construction goods. So if we switch to iron frame, costs go way up because the goods used to go way up, right? We could increase wages for government employees, but that'll pull them out of the private sector economy. I need more goddamn trade routes. Or more resources, I suppose. We now have a dedicated police force. Oh yeah. People should like that, right? Except for the rural folk. Who's this guy? Petty bourgeoisie leader. Okay. Stop telling me he retired. He died, okay? Shell gun is spreading. Is that what we're working on right now? No, we're working on logistics. What's this? From the ground up. A lowborn man has risen to the popular leader of the intelligentsia, with some not so pleased by such social mobility. Whatever, he earned his job. All right, so we need more of this stuff, I'm assuming. So we have a shortage of grain, of services, of lumber, of furniture, of clothing, of fabric, a slight shortage of liquor, tobacco, surplus of dyes, but not much. Slight deficit of sugar, which is interesting because we actually export it. Fish, wine, groceries. Blerg. What's our overall, our population 7.26 million. It's increasing slightly. We've got a lot of, well, not that many unemployed. 2.29 thousand unemployed. 5 million dependents. Holy shit. That's, are those dependents all subsistence farmers then probably? GDP is not really going up all that much. Dying is retiring. Dying is not retiring. Dying is death. Yeah, if they had as good of dialogue writers as Call of Duty, they could, you know, retired with a case of death or something stupid. God, the writing in that's so bad. All right, maize farm expanded to level 3. We shouldn't have any shortage of like resource workers for farms and the like. Venezuela wants to increase relations with us. Debt is going up. What is, ooh, there's a fair bit of interest on our debt. That's not great. We may need to halt construction in a little bit. I do want to get that expanded port though, which by the way, since we have that new crane tech, we can increase the size of the port from 4, which was the previous max, to 5. I'm actually inclined to reduce one of the construction sector buildings to see if we can cut costs. I feel like that might not be a bad idea. Yes, it will slow things down, but Veracruz, meanwhile, is a positive. People want to move to Veracruz. It's like one of the best places in Mexico right now. Population in Mexico City, not so much. $14.2. It is by far our best standard of living state. California was when we had the gold rush going. Texas is starving, but I don't care about them. We have a lot of radicals, by the way. Just gonna point that out. Almost 1 million radicals in a population of just over 7 million people. That's a thing. Occasion since last night, not much. Mostly just my economy not being in great shape. Trying to get more ports so we can bring in more resources via trade. We signed a free trade agreement with France. Our relations with Russia are cordial. The U.S. relations are getting a little bit better. I don't know if there's just like an event that triggers the 1848 war or if there's any way to forestall that. But we are working on improving those relations with the U.S. You can see they're up to neutral, -15 now. No, just under 1 million. 700,000. I mean, that's, I guess it's like 50% more to 1 million, but still. The real people who hate us are the Texans and Nevadans. People are more supportive in the South. Oh, I should pass some laws, huh? So we just did that, okay. Ended voting. We should change our tax laws. Land-based taxation, per capita-based taxation. Much more popular, actually, per capita-based taxation. Trade unions aren't a fan. Let's generate more or less money. Does it tell me current revenue is 29.1? This would increase revenues up to 40. Yes. Well, we only just introduced democracy. Nevada has a lot of folks who we colonized, I believe. California loved me during the gold rush, but we had that early. Navajo uprising against us. Where? Oh, that's because we're colonizing them. Okay. What's the countdown on this one? I'll just let that flow through. I'll send the troops when it gets concerning. They've only got 1 battalion. Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. He's already popular. He's loved. Okay. Well, he did win the war against Texas, and he did win the war against the Cherokee, I believe it was. Or the Comanche. And now he's going to win the war against the Navajo. Are we still building that port? Is that done yet? Port's done. We're working on logging camps. So markets. We're now up to 748 available convoys. I don't think we've hired everybody in the expanded port here, so we have a little bit of capacity here. Hopefully this will help bring more goods in. Doesn't seem to be doing that, though. We are importing regular clothes, right? Or we just, no, yeah, we are. From Great Britain. Wow, that's not, is that one of our unprofitable trade routes? No. Also, we did build our tool factory, right? That's not great. We also are not at full employment. Crude tools. That's why they're wood. Hand assembly, oh my god. Let's see if it gets any better once they hire up. Once they hire up, I'm willing to cancel that trade agreement to free up some trade. Also, we're working on the lumber mill to make that better. Import some clothes from Russia. Okay, they've hired up at the port. It's up to 880 available convoys. Also fabrics from As much as I can do, I'm going to avoid the US. The British. Grain from Russia, maybe? Ooh, Spain. Those are profitable. Hopefully that helps. British fabric route is unproductive. Why are all our trade routes with the British unproductive? Like, why? Also, our construction's complete. Now we can start getting some positive income. I know we need to build more stuff, but I kind of feel compelled to at least let us pay off some of this debt before things get too out of control. Especially since we're about to have to fight a war. So it'll only take a moment, but let's go ahead and raise the legions under Santa Anna, and we'll send them to the Utah front because the war is about to start. The escalation timer is getting close. I would assume 9 battalions under Santa Anna will be enough to crush him. East India Company's trying to conquer the Sikh Empire. Is he almost there? 3 days? 2 days? Right as the war's about to start, Santa Anna's going to show up with his 9,000 soldiers. Good on you, sir. They do have 2 battalions now, but 2 versus 9, we should still win. I do think the game's a little unsatisfying in the way that wars work. I don't have a huge problem with the way brushfire wars work. I actually kind of feel like the front system would be better if... Okay, war's broken out. To arms, to arms. I think the war mechanics would be better on a larger scale, but I also think what I would really like to see the game do is let me choose, when we go into a battle here, you can see, like, I don't know why I'm outnumbered 1-2 in this fight. We have 9 battalions here. Let me choose how many battalions to bring to an individual battle. Let me choose which of my generals I'm going to use in the fight, because if I've got multiple generals on a front, I can't choose who's attacking. I can't choose what general's defending. Like, give me the option to choose the commander based on the soldiers who are at the front, how many of the units at the front I want to commit to a given offensive, and maybe like the ability to set units on the front to rest or other things like that. You can do attack, defend, and sort of reserve, but like it's not. It would be much better if it had just a little bit more, I think, detail than what it does right now for the warfare. In any event, now it's a 3-1, and I don't know like what the logic was in that battle to increase the size of the deployment there, but hey, whatever. All right, so now we're going to fight another. Also, they just kind of move around the map randomly. I think using Hearts of Iron 4's front system would be a little bit better. I don't know if it would make a lot of sense in like some of the colonial wars where frontage was very limited, like huge fronts and limited army size, but he's idle. Oh, that's the Apache. We just conquered the Navajo. We don't have a very good chance of passing the per capita tax, by the way. The armed forces in support. Petty bourgeoisie is in support as well, but it's only about a 28% success rate. What's the... The advance rate is still fairly good. The stall rate is higher than anything I've seen so far. What's this? Guatemala wants a defensive pact? They've got really good relations with me. But why would I do that? Okay, Guatemala, how many battalions do you have? 3? So if the US goes to war with me, they would also go to war with Guatemala. Why? Are they they're not at war with anyone, are they? No. Sorry. I don't want to get tied into an entangling alliance. And now we just gotta wait for the war score to... One other thing I don't get is like, so we conquered all of their territory, but now we still have to wait for this war score thing to tick up, the exhaustion to tick up. I don't quite understand that. All right, so we're paying off some of our debt, about 10,000 a week. I could be building stuff that I'm not. But maybe it'll get the interest under control. I could negotiate with them and say like, hey, agree to my peace. But it doesn't, they won't agree to it yet, so. Wouldn't shock me if it comes to Game Pass eventually. I guess it probably depends how much money Microsoft is willing to give them, right? If I was a game developer, let me put it this way. If I was a game developer of a largish game with a bigger studio behind it, I would not go to Game Pass for at least a couple of months. Because you were just shooting yourself in the foot from a revenue perspective, unless Microsoft writes you a big ass check. Like, games still got to make money. Teams got to pay the bills. I'm pretty damn nervous about the long-term prospects of subscription-based gaming. I think it will be very bad for small-ish studios. Philanthropy. The upper strata have decided to donate generously to the poor. Many among them even advocate for the per capita taxation law, agreeing that it would be a fair means of redistributing wealth. Note, this is 1843. Let's just say I don't think that would happen today. We have so much more. They have so little. We're still wealthy even when when we give generously. Are you really going to miss a few £1,000s? Think of how little that money means to you and how much more it could mean to a starving mother and her children. Well, Silas, what I would say is there was a period, and I won't say they were like, yes, take all our money, but there was a period where there was a sense within the wealthy communities that they did have an obligation to give back to society. And I don't know a ton about the social history, but there is some tie into that in sort of the late 1800s, early 1900s, where there was this sense of being privileged and having an obligation to give back. And you saw a lot of very wealthy philanthropy, even in the United States, by wealthy people. You see a lot of that sort of like one of the, and we don't need to debate Churchill being a good or bad person, but like even when you read about Winston Churchill, like he grew up sort of in the late Victorian era, and even he sort of, in a lot of his writings and his viewpoint, it was very condescending and paternalistic toward like the lower strata. So it's not like it was like he's being a good guy, because like he clearly wasn't. But even in a lot of his writings, there was this sense of this obligation to look after those unable to do so for themselves. Now, again, it was in a very paternalistic way, so he had some very judgmental views of like what the lower classes owed to the upper classes, basically like blind allegiance and those kind of things to the system, which, you know, I don't think he ever really got like, why don't they get it? But like there was, at least for a time, there was a period where sort of the aristocratic old money type families viewed them as having a responsibility to give back to the poor. I think a lot of that mentality is gone now. But like even in Milwaukee, I grew up in the Wisconsin area, and in the city of Milwaukee, there were a couple of big families: the Pettit family, the Allen Bradley family. They married into each other, like, you know, even into the 70s and in the 80s. They were building a lot of things. They built a lot of arts stuff. Hell, this is a random, weird, not super great for like the ordinary person, but like they built the Bradley Center, a multi-use basketball stadium, and gifted it to the Milwaukee Bucks. Which, like, have you ever heard of anyone building a sports stadium as a gift for a city? But the reason they did that is they were big hockey fans and they wanted to lure an NHL team to Milwaukee, which didn't happen. But then like the Pettit Ice Arena, which is like an Olympic category ice facility in Milwaukee. Like Milwaukee would never have an Olympic level ice rink or whatever, but they have it because of these families like donating incredibly lavishly to cities and towns and things like that. So like it was a thing that used to be more prevalent. You don't have to say like, oh, you shouldn't tax them, oh, they're good people. Like there were generally ulterior motives, but there was, I think in previous eras, there was a sense, especially in the old money families, of having an obligation to society. I don't get the sense that we view rich people in the same way. Like, I don't think rich people today are conditioned to believe like you have an obligation to society. And I think that's different. That being said, I don't know that they'd agree to a per capita tax. Anyway, that's enough pontificating. Per capita taxation. So we can leverage their support. That'll give us a 20% increase in success chance. Encourage charitable giving. It'll increase the success chance. It will also increase the standard of living by 1 for the lower strata. It'll lower the minimum expected standard of living for the upper strata. So as much as I want to pass per capita tax, I think we are better off doing this. Increasing the standard of living for the lower strata, lowering the demands of the upper strata, because we have a problem right now in our country where we are not getting enough of the goods to the people that they need. And so if we can increase their standard of living or lower the demands of the standard of living across the board, that's going to be more beneficial than a slightly higher percentage chance of passing this per capita taxation. So let's do the encourage charitable giving. It does increase the success percentage to 38. Does it help our... Hey, look, the standard of living of everybody went up. It was like down to 10.2. Yay. Maybe that'll slow down. Also, a huge cut in the radicals because of that too. So hell yeah, I think that was the right choice. Yeah, tax write-offs, obviously. U.S. as a second-rate power till after World War I. Interesting discussion. U.S., I believe, was the largest economy, maybe excluding like the colonies and the British, but the U.S. was by far a massive industrial powerhouse before World War I, even into the late 1800s. But it didn't really spend that money on the military. Like it wasn't sort of an outgoing, you know, America's imperialism and power was against the native tribes until that period. That being said, even though the U.S. was obviously sort of the arsenal of democracy in World War II, the U.S. remained a fairly poor country on a per capita level into the 1950s. I want to say I read something somewhere where it's like more than 50% of Americans made less than $100 a year, which even adjusted for inflation is a very low income. More than like 50% of Americans made less than $100 a year until like 1952. It was really the post-war boom after World War II that transformed America and really created the substantial middle class that existed through the 80s and into the 90s before you started seeing some pullback on that. That doesn't mean America wasn't a global power before World War II. I think it's just a discrepancy. I think this is a weird comparison, but it's kind of like it's kind of like Russia, right? Russia had this massive, powerful military in the Napoleonic eras, but most of their people were serfs or dead poor or whatever. Like it was a powerhouse for a lot of reasons, but it was a highly uneven society, and that was very much true in the U.S. until after World War II. and still within many groups to this day. Well, the Spanish Navy was also not a great fleet. They had no real battleships. Their cruiser, they had like heavy cruisers that had 11-inch guns, but they had like individual turreted guns. They were not well-designed ships. Who died? Lucas Alamán. Wasn't he our leader? I think our president just died. President Reynold de Turbo. Okay, so we have a new leader, I think. Russia trying to take treaty ports in the Ottoman Empire? Lol. By the way, Slick Williams, thank you for the resub. Appreciate the support. 2 years now, dude. Long freaking time. And ST Assassin, thank you for the sub. Swervin, thanks for the follow. Flank, thanks for the follow. Mac, thanks for the follow. Rand, thanks for the follow. Totally right, Max. But again, I just think it's interesting to point out like this concept of America being rich at an individual level is relatively ish. All right, so we won that war. Our economy is okay when we're not building anything, but that's a long term, that's a problem. We're cutting into the interest rate a bit by paying down some of this debt. I do think we need to build some more stuff. So if we go to details here, what do we need to build? So wood is actually, we're producing a surplus. Probably don't want a huge surplus, but we do have a surplus, so we could probably scale back on some of the importing from Russia. How's the lumber mill there doing? Logging camp is losing money. That's not great. But they also don't have full employment. What if we do this? Sawmill. So it'll increase wood production. Currently it is 120, 120. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for today's episode of Victoria 3, my Mexican gameplay or campaign, episode number 4 in this series. Hope you guys are enjoying the series, and leave your thoughts down below. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out. Bye-bye.